Hello and welcome to episode 13 of the Microsoft Spotlight podcast with me, Andrew Moran, and my co-host John Jarvis. This episode is proudly sponsored by BitTitan. Check out their website today to find out BitTitan can help migrate your data to the Microsoft cloud. So John, we'd like to introduce our first guest today.
Yes, hi everyone. Today we have with us Jese Navaranjan. Jesse, would you like to introduce us quickly?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm Jesse. I currently work at Avanade. I'm a Microsoft MVP. Always feel like I have to say that, even if I don't want to start with it. I have a YouTube channel called Jesse's Power Channel. And yeah, I'm just really quite excited about everything Power Platform in particular. So, yep, and thank you for having me. Nice to be here.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I mean, obviously, I'm an ex-Avanade Go Orange person, so, you know. Yep. And obviously, I know that you joined Avanade by your previous company being acquired by them. That's great.
Yeah, exactly. And for those of you that don't know what Go Orange is, it's basically the Avanade logo is orange. And whenever you join Avanade or start, you have like Go Orange onboarding. And it's, one of their like catchphrases. But yeah, that's right. I came over from a company called Altius. So I was working there for around 2 years before we got acquired. And I've been with Avanade now for 6 months. It's quite interesting because although I've been at Avanade for 6 months, I still feel like I've been at the same company for 2.5 years because I just transitioned over. You know, it was quite seamless and working with a lot of the same people at the time. The project that I was on was the same. So I just came in the next day and I was working on the same thing. So yeah, quite unique.
Just basically a different day, a different badge. That's all it is, really, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
It's the same job. That's
Yeah, I mean, it is a huge company, so we'll say that. Obviously, going from Altius to Avanade was a big transition in terms of the scale that Avanade operates at. And Altius, we were 150 people in the UK, 250 people worldwide, so pretty small in comparison.
So I've got a question for you. So why do you feel you have to mention the word being an MVP? I mean, I was a former MVP, and I don't.
Yeah.
It's kind of a thing like, you know, when you do a presentation, you feel like you got to say like, "Yes, I'm Blow. I'm an MVP."
Yeah.
So,
it is a massive badge, and I don't go walking around saying, "Hi, I'm Jesse. I'm an MVP." It's not really part of my intro. But if I am doing a presentation or something where I'm talking about my role in tech, I feel it is an important thing to mention. So I've only been an MVP for about 6 months. And actually, yeah, in the start, like when I first started hearing about MVPs, and I thought they were like this elite group. And you kind of, if you're not an MVP, you're not an MVP, and you're, I don't know, not chosen for things and all that kind of stuff. But actually, it just ended up that the way my career was progressing, and I started presenting at user groups, and I started blogging, and I started YouTubing, that it was very natural for me to go down that path. And in a way, it wouldn't have made sense for me not to. So I'm very proud and very honoured to have the badge. So I feel like I do have to say it if I'm presenting.
Yeah, because I know obviously Avanade have a large MVP community, and obviously before we started speaking on this podcast, I know one of your current colleagues, Paul Andrews. So I met him before he was an MVP running user groups up in the Midlands area. So let's talk about your past then. The one question I'm going to ask is how you got into IT, because every single episode that we've done so far has always been an accident. So was it an accident yourself?
Yeah, definitely. It's I mean, looking back, I did maths at university. So I did a course called Morse at the University of Warwick, which stands for Maths, Operational Research, Statistics and Economics. And I did that really because I like maths. I've always liked maths at school. And I thought it was better than doing like the pure version of it. So I went to Warwick, did that. And then in my final year, trying to find jobs, I did an internship at a bank. I didn't really enjoy it that much. I found that people were working crazy hours. It's a bit of a dog-eat-dog world, and I didn't like the culture. And so that was the kind of obvious thing for me to go for. Didn't really like it. And then I actually, through my university, I heard about a graduate program at BT, and the role was as I think it was like a business analyst or some kind of analyst. It's like one of those terms that doesn't really mean a lot to begin with. But yeah, I started there, and I wasn't really doing Power Platform at that point, but I was using like Excel and PowerPoint and just basically doing data analysis. And then from there, I ended up applying for Heathrow Airport for, again, a operational insight analyst, I think I was called. I can't remember the exact title, but it was there that the Power Platform was introduced to Heathrow. So we had the Power Platform tools for us to use, so Power Apps, Power BI. We were given the access, and it really got to a point in my kind of career where I either learnt the Power Platform at Heathrow Airport, or I didn't, and I wouldn't have excelled in that job. And I chose to just start learning Power BI. I essentially took all of their routine reporting that was all done in Excel before and very manual, and essentially made Power BI reports out of everything. And so I got to a point where my job was actually not really there anymore, because I essentially built a bunch of reports, and then I started doing more kind of the insights. Actually, what does this data mean? Talking to people, going to immigration every week. I set up an immigration meeting with all the immigration officers to explain to them how their security and everything was going, and how many people they were processing, etc., and the change. So yeah, completely fell into it, as a lot of people do.
I'm gonna say, like, this is episode 13 now, and it's the same message in every single one that we've had. I think we joked about it on the last one there, and we recorded. It's just interesting how people, or say women from the women in tech community, don't actively go out and look for careers in IT. They kind of basically fall into it from either university or, obviously in our last episode that we recorded, she was a teacher, and she fell into becoming a Microsoft certified trainer because of that particular role that she did, teaching German. So one of the things that obviously you put in your little notes back to us is obviously interesting facts about yourself. So you want to just expand a bit about them? Because I've never heard of a Japanese abacus. So that's
sure. So the other thing that I do in my free time, as it were, is I teach maths as well. So a couple of years ago, a individual got in touch with me who essentially had a Japanese abacus tuition center, and he reached out to get some help. So I turned up for a job, essentially, for a weekend job even. And yeah, he was great. He taught me everything there is to know. And so the Japanese abacus is basically a set of beads. And you can find pictures of them online. So if you kind of Google Japanese abacus, you'll see them. And essentially what you can do is you can add, divide, take away, and multiply using these beads. And these beads essentially, some of them represent like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Some of them represent tens. And it's amazing because some of these children that are learning this get to a point where you can just chuck numbers at them and they just start like doing it in their heads. To the point where I'd say some of the kids that I was teaching were almost like better than me because of how many years they had done it for. And it's what's really fascinating about it is seeing how these children's brains are wired differently, or being wired differently, to look at numbers on beads, essentially, and not the typical kind of number form that we put on paper.
That's interesting. So I've never actually seen one, and I think John's the same. It's like,
really cool.
I was like,
yeah.
what the hell is that? That's how it worked on Google to find out what it was.
Quickly gave a quick Google before we started today.
If you look at like YouTube videos of children doing maths on them, it's insane. I mean, they get to the point where they don't need the beads anymore. They're just imagining it in their heads. It's insane.
Wow.
So I'm going to ask some questions then. Like, obviously you've only recently become an MVP. Did you like actively go out looking to become an MVP? Did you like? For me, when I started looking at what MVP was, I basically worked with a few ex-colleagues who were MVPs, and I was like, oh, I'd like to try and achieve that accolade. It's not something you can actively go out and just become. You have to kind of like build your type of brand. Is that what you kind of did for yourself?
Yeah, definitely. And it was also about being surrounded by people that were motivating me and encouraging me and being the role models in that MVP space. So James Dales, who I work with, and Prathi Kamasamy as well, going to the London Power BI user groups in particular and seeing them present. And, they're both very, very down-to-earth people. And that's what I wanted to do and become. And also, it is about, you can't just, there are steps you can take to become an MVP, but it's also just what kind of happens throughout what you do to become one. So it's about your brand, it's about sharing with the community, it's about helping people, it's about the materials that you produce. It's a lot of work. I sometimes say this, like, oh, sometimes I don't finish too late, and I might have a 5 p.m. or a 6 p.m. finish, but actually in the evening I end up logging back in to do MVP content. So I do end up working a lot more because of it as well.
Do you find that's a bit of a toll on obviously your personal life and stuff like that?
Yeah, and I do balance it quite well. But I guess, if everyone listening on this podcast, you don't need to become an MVP. You can just do your job. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a complete choice that I've made. I'm also at a point in my career where, I don't have children. I don't have any big commitments. So I know within myself that, if I do have children one day, that might completely change and my priorities might change. But, right now I manage myself. I never work at the weekends is my rule. And if I'm on holiday, I'm on holiday. I don't log in to do anything essentially. So yeah, it's just about managing your time really.
So you said before that you stopped in your career at Heathrow Airport. Kind of, how did you then get into like working for an MSP or a consultancy?
Yeah, I skipped that part, didn't I? So when I was at Heathrow, so I got to the point, as I mentioned, where I'd done all this reporting and like my job seemed a bit kind of like done. I was actually just going out talking to people. So I wanted to know what the next best thing was now in the Power Platform. I really liked the Power Platform. So I went through a recruitment agency, actually. It was Nigel Frank at the time. And they told me about Altius, and they told me, there are these user groups that you can go to. And at that time, I had no idea. I was working in Heathrow and not in London, and so I didn't have that kind of connection. And so I did go to the London Power BI user group. I will tell you a funny story. I don't know if James Dales will listen to this, but I essentially met my interviewer, who was James Dales, the day before at the user group, went and said hello, and the next day he interviewed me. So that was
by accident, or did you consciously go out?
I knew he was going to be there, and it just happened to be that the user group was on the same day. Well, I didn't know he was going to be there, like for sure. I just knew he might be there. But it was very strange because I went up to him and introduced myself, and I felt like I was interviewing from hello. And so he even talks about that as being a very awkward, funny moment.
I want to say, I've actually done that before. I mean, when I used to run user groups in the Midlands, I actually got job roles through running my user group.
Yeah.
I got to meet people, and it's like, oh, I've got a role you might be good for. So I then interviewed for it, and that person's then interviewing me as the person that attended my user group.
Yeah.
So you get around some like the awkward questions, just like technical skills, because you've done the whole presenting and they know who you are. But
yeah,
there's obviously that personality fit. And I know obviously I was just personality fit.
I was just attending at that point, so I wasn't presenting at all. But yeah, then I took along a portfolio, and that's like something I think is very useful and like to share with anyone listening is when you do go for interviews, having a portfolio of work, really makes what you say like visible on paper or whatever it is that you're presenting it on. So and then I got that job.
Nice, and that's it from there.
Yep, indeed.
Power Platform through and through.
So was it those days and starting off in the user group then that's kind of made you want to start working more in the community then?
Yeah, definitely. It was completely going to the user group, and as I mentioned, the people around me that were motivating and making me kind of want to do it, but also the want to present. Again, this isn't for everyone. Not everyone wants to stand up in front of 150, 200 people and present, but it was something that I wanted to do for myself, and it was something I wanted to do to push myself, because I definitely remember when I was much younger doing like internships and stuff, and I there's a key presentation I remember in which I hated it. I didn't like it. It didn't go well, and I had like 10 people in the room. And it was just like from that moment, I was like, I want to get to a point where presenting isn't hard. It's just a thing that I do. And having watched people present, big CEOs and whatever, I just find it really fascinating that they have this way of speaking, and that's what motivated me. So then from attending user groups, I wanted to present at user groups. I can't remember what the first, I do probably remember. It was, I can't remember the name of it, but it was a London boot camp type committee. I can't remember the name of the committee, but essentially that was the first one I did, in which I presented on using large data within Power Apps. And I was very nervous. I mean, as people were walking into the room, I was like on my phone Googling how to slow down heartbeat quickly because my heart was just like racing. But once I got into it, it was okay. It was great, and I was happy with how it went.
So talk to us about kind of like the journey up to that point then. So you made your decision, like what happened next? Did you start applying to different user groups, and how did you start to put together kind of what you wanted to present?
Yeah. So firstly, I kept going to user groups. So I would just go in and listen to loads of sessions. I went to the Business Application Summit in Atlanta in that year. So yeah, Altius had helped me get there, which was really great. So I got to meet loads of different people. And then I actually did an online presentation on using SVGs in Power BI first. I think that was as soon as I got back. So that was great because I'd basically done this like online presentation, which I don't find as scary at all. And then I also wrote a blog on that. And then I just applied. This slot came up at this committee, which for the life of me, I can't remember what it was called. Yeah, so I applied for that and then just worked backwards really. And also the idea, obviously you need an idea in order to present. And that's usually quite tough actually. I mean, I still struggle with it now. It's like, what can I say that other people aren't saying? What can I say that other people don't already know, or there isn't already great content out there for that? And the tip I'd give for that is I always try and present on things that I've struggled with and therefore I needed to do. So there's two topics I mentioned, the SVG and Power BI. That was something I needed to do for a client and I learned to do. And therefore it made sense to make a presentation out of it. Using large data and Power Apps, again, that was something I needed to do. And I had obstacles that were in place and I came around them with different ideas and methodologies. And that's how I made the presentation out of it. So it's just, yeah, addressing things that you need to do yourself.
So you're quite fearless then, obviously, you literally started attending a user group. I mean, as a person that ran user groups, it was always difficult attracting female attendees, even to the point of today when user groups were able to run in person, I was attending a local Midlands one. And again, it was just 100% male in the room.
Yeah.
There is obviously a big challenge, obviously getting women to attend user groups and being able then not to only just attend, but then also speak at them as well. So,
yeah.
Do you think you're kind of fearless in that kind of respect? You have like a mindset that you want to achieve, put yourself out in the community, you basically run with it.
Yeah, I'd say so. Like I'd say I'm fearless, but also quite ambitious. Like I don't think for me, anyway, now this is how I feel. Who knows how I'll feel in 10 years' time? But right now, I feel like I need to keep pushing myself. Like I need to know what the next goal is. I'm the kind of person that will wake up and write my goals down or think about my goals for the next 3 months or the next 6 months or the next year. So if I'm just in a job, that isn't always enough for me. I want to do well in the job. But I mean, it's not just goals in my work life either, I'd say. Like I have a lot of personal goals that I have. So how I want to exercise every day, or I want to make sure that I meet my friends and family on a regular basis, or I want to make more of an effort in certain parts of my life. Or, recently I've been thinking I love cooking, but recently I haven't cooked as much because we've been away for a couple of weeks. And so, something that I said to myself is, okay, I'm going to actually make like a really nice meal every week at least, because all the meals I make are quite, boring and standard usually. So yeah, it's just about having goals and being ambitious in work and in personal life.
That's brilliant. I mean, what advice would you give to someone, obviously a woman in tech, wanting to attend a user group and actually then start presenting?
Yeah, attend, take notes, and find a female mentor. So I really need to find a female mentee. It's something I've been thinking about for months. I'm struggling to figure out how to find someone. So maybe someone watching this wants to reach out.
Andrew's going to plug something right now.
Oh yeah, because to be fair, I'm actually trying to build a whole entire LinkedIn community around Microsoft Women in Tech. That basically, women can basically join this group, they can basically then connect with obviously people like yourself. Obviously, what does like mentoring people, that's brilliant. And then basically go from there. I mean, because one of my long-term goals, as well as obviously this podcast, is to, when physically can, especially in the UK, is basically put on like a user group for women in tech, whether that's in person in London, Midlands area, or wherever, or even do like a full-day conference where obviously then the attendees are mostly women, the presenters are mostly women, and then basically build from there. So having that platform and for mentors to basically come in and basically assist women that want to achieve, like you have completely, gone out there, you started at the very bottom, being an attendee, and now obviously becoming an MVP. I want to try and build that community and obviously assist in that area. And that's just like we're doing with this podcast. I mean, what I have done as well within this LinkedIn group, and I'm sure we'll put it in the show notes for this podcast, is one of our previous guests, Anne Michaels. He works in the Microsoft Teams product group. She's not technical, but she's a woman that's basically been on stage at Ignite, delivered sessions to 5,000 people. She's already mentoring someone that reached out to her directly, and I want to carry on building that platform. I've even included our regional MVP lead, Claire Smith, as well. So I think I'll get you in there. You can start.
Yeah, definitely.
Help me build this community. I mean, I'm trying to invite as many women from the UK tech industry that I've basically ever worked with into this group. So there's one way of starting to find a mentee.
It's amazing. I mean, so Prathi has always been my mentor. So she's from a female point of view helped me so much. So that's the advice I give is exactly what you said. Get a mentee, get a mentor.
Do you think it's important getting a mentor then for a woman in tech?
Yeah, definitely. And I would even stretch as far as to say I think it's important to get a female mentor, because there are so few of us in this space. And there are, I wouldn't say that I've come across massive challenges. I would say I've been, lucky in the fact that I've, been able to get to where I am. But equally, there are things that are easier to maybe talk to a woman about, especially when, sometimes I'll be in client meetings or in my team, and I'll be the 1%, I'll be the 5%, I'll be the 10%. I will always be the minority in my group, essentially. And like I said, I haven't faced any discrimination, luckily, but I know a lot of women have. So, being able to speak to someone about that is good. And also, when you do see a female role model, you're more relatable to it, right? You can say, I can also achieve what that person is achieving. And when a lot of the senior leadership and all the CEOs of companies, they all look the same, it doesn't motivate me as much, that's for sure. It's great that obviously we have Pamela Maynard as our CEO at Avanade. That's amazing. A female role model. I think she's great. I haven't ever had the chance to speak to her, but I mean, I read everything she puts out, and I watch things that she records or meetings that I can attend that she's on.
I think as well. Great. The fact, obviously, Pamela is also a woman in tech, but also a woman of colour as well.
Yes, definitely.
A large leadership role within, a big organisation.
Yeah, definitely. And that obviously is motivational for me as well, to think, everyone doesn't look the same. They look like me. That's great. I can also do that. And there's always that question, like when I was, younger, and someone says, where do you see yourself in like a year or 3 years time or 5 years time? And I'd say, I don't know. And now I always give this like really, really blasé answer of like, well, CTO one day or CEO one day. Like, why not? Like, why can't I do that? Why isn't it possible? So,
I mean, the world's your oyster. You can literally achieve anything you want to achieve, and obviously,
definitely.
Becoming an MVP is obviously, a big accolade within the tech industry, and obviously keeping that up as well is, a commitment. Having done it yourself and going through the process of doing it again, it is hard work. And obviously and as I say, like especially for a woman as well in tech. So as I said at the minute, you don't have any children, any real commitment, but obviously when that does come along, then you're going to have them challenges.
Yep. And I do wonder, like, from my standpoint here, what is that support there in that area of life? So if I do have children, is the MVP community going to support me? Am I just going to lose my status because I can't do as much anymore? I don't know. I don't know what will happen at that point. So let's see.
I'll get Claire Smith on a podcast and we'll ask her that question.
Oh, please do. I was thinking of emailing her and asking her this, and I was like, but I don't actually want children now. I just want to know. But I thought I'd wait until that point.
I mean, I'm just trying to think of obviously of the female MVPs in the UK that I'm trying to think. Obviously, any with families, I can't.
Probably you probably don't remember any. I mean, I actually spoke to a colleague who said women that are MVPs do it before they have children, or they do it much after they have children. So when the children are all grown up and self-sufficient. I'm sure there are some. I don't know every woman in the MVP community, so it'll be good to know. Good to hear some stories, actually.
I'm going to say, like, we had Anne Michaels on one of our previous podcasts, and obviously she was very much big with obviously working mums. Obviously, she's on maternity leave, and we basically had a conversation with her.
Oh, lovely, yeah.
And she was basically going into how passionate she is about working mums, getting them back into work, having them conversations with your employers about working patterns and all that kind of stuff. So there is obviously people out there that want to support working women with families, and she's definitely one of them people that if you feel like having a conversation with. She's at Microsoft. She'd be able to give you some advice.
Yeah, great.
So what's your usual working day look like then at the moment?
Yeah, so it's a bit strange at the moment. I've only just joined the global power platform CAV as of 2 days ago. I don't know when this goes out, so I won't use weekdays and stuff. So I've been in this job for 2.5 days now. So it's lunchtime on the 3rd day. So it's quite different at the moment. It's a lot of getting to know people, being introduced to the type of work I'll be doing. What's really different in my role right now, actually, is that I've never worked in a global team before. So now this morning I was speaking to the team in the Philippines. Later this evening I'll have catch-ups with the US team. So it's a bit of getting used to, because I've only really worked in the UK area. But I mean, if I go back to when I was in kind of my UK role, which I can speak to a little bit more, is with my client, my typical day would be I'd wake up, probably log into some stand-ups. So stand-ups are when you just chat to your team about what's going on. So I used to have a couple of them in the morning. I might do a bit of app building. I might talk to some of the team about what they're doing, hold meetings on maybe requirements or any testing or anything that needs to happen. It kind of varies day to day. A lot of meetings, actually, especially being in my position where I'm a little bit more senior now, so I'm not doing as much building. I'm actually just helping people build. Maybe putting a PowerPoint deck together or something to convey a message. And then, that's a lot of the day. And then at some point in the day as well, I might do some MVP content. So think about maybe some YouTube content I want to get out there, look at what's new in the Power Apps world or in the Power BI world. So keep on top of blogs and things that are out there as well. Maybe attend a user group session. So I often attend the community, the Microsoft community call. I say often, I pretty much always attend the community call from the Power App side. So I go to that once a month, every 3rd Wednesday. So that might be also part of my day.
So what's the new global role entail then that you're doing?
So it's a technical solutions architect at Avanade. So going in and solutioning projects for multiple clients, whereas previously in the UK business, I pretty much was put on one client and then I'd be building or helping whatever it is that needs to be done within that client. So what's different about my role is that I'm a little bit more senior now, so I will help others build architect solution, maybe do some pre-sales, maybe do some work on the kind of center of excellence setups, and also I am involved in training and looking at the Power Platform capability across the whole of Avanade.
Nice.
Well, so obviously, for my time at Avanade, obviously I knew about the global role, and my career advisor basically joined the global role, but still my career advisor, even though I was basically looking after the UK customers, he was looking after the global. We basically like, we've got a relationship, no point in changing it. So he came doing global stuff, and I he's still my point of contact. I mean, one of the things that I know when I was at Avanade, there's obviously the process that I basically have for bringing in graduates, and then graduates basically moving up within the career stack. I mean, when I joined, I know there was a girl called Madalena. She was basically just an analyst, and I know now she's now up to consultant level. I mean, I know Avanade have got a good conveyor belt of getting people up within roles, not just people, obviously women as well. And I know Avanade have got a good, I've got a women in tech community as well.
Yes, they do, definitely. And actually, if it's Madalena Pavel, she's actually a senior consultant now.
Yeah, she's doing really well for us. I've got her connected on LinkedIn. I've invited her to join me on this podcast at some point in the future as well. Because when I started working with her, she was basically running some PowerShell scripts for me when I was working for a particular customer, and then she's there. I know she's progressed quite well.
So recently, actually, I was put on something called the Horizon program at Avanade. I haven't actually seen a lot on like social media about it, but I know it's like a public thing, so I can talk about it. But it's an internal program in which they put, there were 9 of us, so 9 women who were kind of high-performing individuals. And we were put on a 6-month program. Every month, we essentially got a different kind of session that we were given. Stuff like presentation skills, managing your brand, managing your influence. And at the end of it, we had a presentation. So we were actually set a task. I won't go into the details of the task because I'm not sure that would be public. But yeah, so I was given a task to essentially work with these 8 other high-performing individuals, and then we had a presentation at the end and what we call like a graduation at the end. What was really interesting there actually is I've never worked with 8 other high-performing individuals in a team that were all female. Of course, I've worked with lots of amazing people, but this was interesting now seeing it. We were all women. And that was, it was interesting to begin with, actually, because it was, something we'd all never experienced before, and all being quite high performing. I think the term we once used was all like alpha females. We were all really trying to, lead and get everything sorted, and we found our groove. It took a couple of weeks, and then we found our groove, and we worked really well together.
That's awesome. So I know obviously Avanade do like presentations for the women in tech, and obviously when it obviously is awareness for women in tech, they do like an event as well. Have you been involved in that? Because
so
I think there just when it ran. So
yeah, I did. So there's a data and AI women in tech community. I think there's another one as well, and forgive me for not knowing the name. I'm pretty sure there's another Avanade one. So me and Prathi once was on the Data and AI Women in Tech event in which we talked about the mentor-mentee relationship that we have. So that recording is out there on LinkedIn and Twitter somewhere. And I also got in touch with someone in there's like an Asian nation, ASEAN. I don't actually say that word. Stands for kind of the Asia, Singapore. Again, I don't actually know what it stands for. But essentially, there was a Women in Tech event that I presented at there as well. So that's also on the internet somewhere.
Okay, cool.
So you've mentioned that you've had mentors in the past, but kind of who really inspires you within the community then?
Yeah, definitely kind of Prathi and Laura and Claire Edgson, who I work with, and Clarissa and Sharon Summer as well. Myself, Clarissa, and Sharon had the pleasure of working with each other last December. We presented at their community call, and we created this whole presentation between the 3 of us using Power BI, using Power Apps, using Power Virtual Agents, and it had like a Christmas theme. So yeah, I am inspired by a lot of people in the community, but especially women. So I'll just call out those for now, because if I start going into a massive list, then I'll forget some names, and it'll be a very long list as well.
And that's good. Obviously, you're inspired by a lot of other women within the community. That obviously that have been there, helped you, and kind of guided you through that steps. And obviously, the fact that you wanted to also give back as well, that's brilliant. So obviously, you've spoke about your obviously potential career path that you want to take where you want to become a CTO. So what does your immediate future at Avanade look like? I mean, obviously you've moved into your new position there. What would be the next thing for you at Avanade?
Yeah, I mean, whenever you move jobs, I think my immediate goals is just to be the best I can at my role. So it's quite a closed goal at the moment. I've only just got here, so I'm not thinking about moving or the next role, as it were. I do want to obviously achieve the MVP status again next year. So thinking about things I can do. And yeah, I mentioned that I want to get a mentee, so that's something I want to achieve. I went through a bit of a certification drive of my own accord. I think it was before I had a few weeks off. So I did the PL 900, I did the PL 100, I did the PL 200, I did the AZ 900. I think those, it might be, the DA 100 as well. So I passed like 5 exams within like 2 weeks. There's a few more sets I want to achieve as well, namely the PL 600 and the PL 400. So that's also part of my short-term goal. They're a bit of a tick in the box. I'll be quite honest about that. Just because you've passed a certification doesn't mean you can do your role.
Yeah.
But it's nice. It's nice actually. And I do learn from them. I do definitely learn from them. But it's always like random nuanced things I don't think I'll ever use. But yeah, I do want to achieve those as well in the short term.
I was pretty proud I passed that PL 900.
That's good, yeah.
I don't do much power platforms whatsoever, but it's something I'm really interested in. So I was just like, I'm going to just spend a week and try and just learn the whole of the PL 900, and I managed to get that. So I'm actually doing a training course on the PL 100. So hopefully you'll start seeing me in the power platform circles one day if I get on with it.
Yeah. That's awesome. The tip I do for that is like book the exam and then just work backwards, because you can always move the exam. So I did that.
Exactly. Yeah.
I was meant to sit one today, and then I came back from holiday and I just thought, a bit tired. I don't really want to sit an exam on Wednesday, so I just moved it.
I had the SC 400 booked today earlier, but I got to the exam centre and Pearson VUE, it all broke. They asked me to wait half an hour, and I was like, nope.
Oh no!
I've got a podcast to get to.
Yeah, priorities.
A what class? Sorry.
Podcast.
A podcast to get to. Yeah.
This podcast is important.
Yeah.
I'll go back to exams. Obviously, you mentioned you're doing these as a tick in the box. Do you think that's important for women in tech to basically go and get these exams as well as basically?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's like. I think a lot of these things, I wouldn't say it's specifically important for women in tech at all. I think it's important for everyone. But also, I'm also quite honest to say that if you don't have certifications, that doesn't mean you're not good at your job. There are lots of people that have 0 certifications but are incredible at their job. But I'm doing them because I wanted to do them for myself. And like I said, I was learning about parts of the platform that I don't use as much. So I'm not an expert in Dynamics or in F&O and like say field operations and that kind of thing. And parts of these exams, they touch on those elements, which I don't know enough about. So that was one of my reasons for wanting to take these exams, is to learn about parts that I'm not directly involved in my day-to-day, but I need to have the knowledge on. So I could just go learn about it and then I know about it. But for me, I find it easier just to have a goal and just sit an exam. So yeah, I wouldn't say it's, and some roles actually require that you do it as well.
But there's a lot behind it, like that. I think they're really good because they validate your skills. They don't say you're doing it. They validate kind of that you know what you're talking about at least. And secondly, it's like it's good for to show customers.
Definitely.
If you put 2 people at the end of the day, if you put 2 profiles out to one customer, one person has the exams and the certifications, one person doesn't.
Very true.
Which one do you think they're going to go to?
Yeah.
I think that's the same for if you're going for interviews as well. So obviously to improve your chances of getting that face-to-face interview, whether it's over Teams nowadays, because obviously can't do face-to-face, but obviously getting in front of that hiring manager, I think having certificates that basically back up your knowledge is very valuable. Massively puts you ahead of others, because I do exams just to basically validate my own experience. I'm very comfortable in what I'm doing. I know if I don't know it, I can basically go and learn it, and I'll pick it up quite easily. But I think if you're looking for a role, and I think obviously it's the same for anyone, but obviously for a woman in tech, obviously to strengthen their their position, I think doing certifications as well is very beneficial.
Yeah. The other thing I'd say is don't be afraid to fail exams. I failed the PL 600, which is the one I need to redo now. I failed by about, I don't know, 1 mark or 2 marks, which is really annoying, but it's okay to fail. I mean, they are expensive. So obviously, from a cost point of view, I'm lucky enough that Avanade are able to pay for my exams. But yeah, it's okay to fail.
And so some organisations obviously do give you that ability to obviously take exams, and obviously giving you the practice exam questions as well. So I know Avanade have got a relationship with Measure Up, so you'll
yes, exactly, and they're really great. Yeah, and I love Measure Up, but again, I know that I'm privileged enough to have that as part of my package, and I just get it. But yeah, I would use Measure Up if you can get your hands on it.
Cool. Well, I think we're getting quite kind of close to time, so I'm trying to kind of wrap it up with you. I always like to try and throw out like an interview question, and I think I'm using the same one I've used in a previous podcast. So if you didn't work in IT, what would you be doing now?
So there's 2 answers to that. As a kid, I always wanted to be a teacher. So I actually got in for a PGCE course twice in the last 5 or 6 years because I was like, oh, should I be a teacher? Should I not be a teacher? So yeah, I'd be a teacher. But the second answer is now having loved what I do in the Power Platform, the thing I do differently is I would have done computer science at university. I think that was a degree I should have done. And I think I would be a software engineer or a kind of hardcore coder. Building apps. Not that Power Apps isn't great, I love it. No detriment to it. But if I was in school and someone had encouraged me or told me that it was okay to do IT or go do computer science, and I think that was what was missing when I was a kid. Maths was fine, but computer science was for boys.
Yeah, I think that's been missing for anyone of a particular generation up till current times, because I think
Agreed.
COVID, everyone's had to basically use tech more than they would have normally, using Teams to do class lessons or even Google Hangouts. I think obviously that stigmatism is basically slowly being tackled, but still there's that blocker there that's basically preventing girls of a young age getting into IT because they don't think it's a glamorous role, and they basically think IT geek nerd, and they basically shy away from it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'm going to wrap it up there and say, it's nice to speak to someone who's obviously worked at a company I've worked at, and obviously I know a bit about what Avanade are doing. I know obviously how they basically help promote women internally up into more senior roles, and obviously talking about Madeline and how she started out as an analyst when I first met her, and now she's a senior consultant. I think let's touch on that for a second. Obviously, Avanade have basically bandings of particular roles. They basically start as an analyst, senior analyst, then I think it's consultant, senior consultant, then goes on to a manager.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
There's a whole long list of promotions that basically someone can achieve, and obviously at each promotion stage is the reward of a bigger salary. So the fact that she's gone from an analyst up to senior consultant, amazing. Hats off to her. She deserves it.
Yep.
So thank you for joining us, Jesse, today. It's nice to have a conversation and talk about stuff that I kind of know a little bit about, and obviously John's done the exams. That covers that bit, doesn't it, John?
He's done the 900. I'm a fundamentally good.
Yeah, fundamentally good at Power Platform. There you go.
Fundamentally passable.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
No worries.
Thank you
Cool.
for reaching
Nice
out.
to meet you, Jesse.
I've enjoyed it.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'll see you on the next episode. Thank you for listening to the Microsoft Spotlight podcast. Please make sure you hit that like, share and subscribe button to help us promote our message. You can also follow us on Twitter at MSFT Spotlight, and we're also on LinkedIn, the Microsoft Spotlight podcast. And finally, we'd like to tell you a little bit about BitTitan and thank them for sponsoring this podcast.
Remote migrations start here. Let MigrationWiz do the work for you. It's fast, secure, and 100% SaaS, which means you can migrate at any time and from anywhere. Migrate mailboxes, documents, public folders, personal archives, or even Microsoft Teams with just a few clicks. No special training needed and no customer downtime. When the work matters, choose Migration Wiz.